I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands.
Welcome to Build an Iconic Life podcast. I'm your host, Chris Whitehead, and this podcast is dedicated to help you build a life with zero regrets by focusing on how you have everything you need to stand up, stand out, and live life on your terms. Let's dive right in. Hey everybody, Chris Whitehead here. Welcome back to another episode of Build an Iconic Life. I'm here with a really good friend of mine, a former client of mine, and we actually were just catching up last week, and he's living in Colombia now, and he started telling me about his lifestyle, and I said, man, I really want to get you on the podcast because I think there are a lot of people that don't give themselves permission to truly live the best version of their lives because they don't think outside the box. Well, one of the things that I know about Brandon Spears, I've known you now for 3 years, and one of the things that I know about you is you definitely think outside of the box. And being somebody that is younger, especially, your generation is coming into power very, very, very quickly. And I want to get the message out from people that are living an elite lifestyle that are in your age category to think more outside the box. I can't think of a better example of it. So welcome to the show. And I'm really grateful that you're here, man.
Thank you, man. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, let's jam.
So you have a business called Click Titan. What I was surprised at is when Brooke, my assistant, reached out and asked about like what your purpose was. Bro, it wasn't about what you do for a living. It's actually, and I'm going to read it, to truly live free while impacting as many people in a positive way as possible. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think we all kind of got caught up in the last 3 years on, like, it was really easy to make money, and a lot of people were like, cars, watches, flexing on social media, look at me, I can teach you how to make money. But, you know, their life was in shambles. Like, there were so many people living on social media, and they had the jet and the car, but they're miserable because of the fake persona that they've put out there. And they're out to help as many people as they can, but all they were doing was teaching people to fake it until you make it, I guess is the better word I'm looking for. And they created a lot of miserable people because everybody wanted the watch and the shoes and the jet and the car instead of just living like who they actually want it to be. Like, who cares if you make $100,000 a year and you have a cattle farm, but you love cattle, right? Like, who cares? Like, you don't got to have the Rolex and the Lamborghini. And I think so many people choose not to live the way that they want to live because of all the people who are flexing on social media. Like, oh, this is the best lifestyle. This is how you should live. And that's really not the truth.
So, you know, you and I, because we work together, I know a whole bunch about your personal story. And I think it would be good for whatever part you want to share. But I'm talking all the way back, if you want to go there, to what you're doing with your children in the United States, to what you're doing traveling to grow not one, but multiple businesses to where you are now. Do you want to give people a little bit of that timeline of your experience?
Yeah. So I won't go into the whole thing, but about almost 6 years ago now, I got full custody of my kids. And single dad, I couldn't work. I couldn't work a normal job. So I had to find a way to make income, and that's how I kind of started my business. And then the school system and all the things that I dealt with the schedule, like having to pick the kids up and get the kids home and then work and do it all on my own. I didn't really care about like the school system. Like, the school system is so broken. So for like a couple years, I was planning, like, how can I make enough money to remotely to have complete freedom, take them to see different cultures, diversity, how well we actually have it in the US, because like where I'm at right now, there is no government assistance. If you're broke, you're broke. If you don't have food, you're not eating. right? Like there is no in between. Like, so everyone here is hustling. No one is just laying around collecting any kind of benefits from the government. It doesn't exist. If you have a disability or you get hurt, your family's going to take care of you. There is no government assistance for that, right? And I wanted them to see that. I want them to see. I've taken them to the Bejos. I've taken them around Colombia, way out into the countryside, where there is no internet, right? There is no service out there, just to see how people live. I want them to be very diversified as they grow up and not close-minded, because I think that you live in a single spot and you never travel, like you don't experience nothing. Like you get stuck in your ways. And I just really wanted to raise good human beings, because the only thing you can really truly control is your children, right? I can impact as many people as I possibly can that are adults, but the three people that I actually really get to mold into a human being is my kids. And they're going to be the ones that leave the impact after I'm gone, right? And that they're going to leave the impact. So like, it's the only way that I could, like, I never got to try. I didn't see the beach till I was 19. That was the first family vacation that we took because we were so poor. They've been halfway across the world, to some other places. They've seen different cultures. Like by the time they're my age, they're going to be so far ahead of where I was mentally. And that was my goal is when they do go back to the States and they have to work that first hard job, it's not really hard. It's a privilege.
When you were back in Kentucky, though, 5 or 6 years ago, starting this thing, did you think you would be living in Colombia, then thinking about going to Italy and Spain and all of that?
Absolutely not. Like the furthest that it went was probably like, I'm going to move to Florida so that I can do more fishing and some golf. Like that was probably about as far as it was going to go.
Well, look at you now, man, and you're just starting, and you are the moniker of people often overestimate what they can do in 1 year, and they often underestimate what they can do in 10. Because when you started working with me, you had a business partner, and you were growing a digital company where you just help people with ads on, Google, social media, whatever. And you're absolutely brilliant at it. You're one of the top of the top. The people that you run with are at the top as well. And there was a little bit of confusion about business and growth. And what I saw happen over about a year and a half was you personally just claim your own strength. That's literally what I saw you do. And from there, you were connected to other very, very powerful people inside of our organization, and you started making moves, man. And what's really cool about you is that before you make a physical move, you're one of the people that digest information and parses it out so that it actually has a conclusion that you want. I love that about you, because I'm the exact opposite. I'm more like, we're just going to chuck the spear at something and like check out what it looks like when we're done. And you are, dude, tell people what's going on when you made this move to Colombia, what you're capable now of doing because of what it costs to live there.
Yeah, so your dollar is 4 times as strong here as it is in the States. So $1 equals 4 essentially. So like a lifestyle that would cost you $20,000 to have everything removed off of your plate a month will cost you about 7, right? Like $6,000 to $7,000 a month. So, yeah, I have a chef, I have a nanny, I have a cleaning lady, I have a personal concierge that drives me around, that also translates. I have
tutors for the kid.
Yeah, I have a personal teacher for the kid for homeschooling for the kids, so that I didn't have to put them in public schools. I have a personal trainer and a personal Spanish teacher. I live in the nicest part of town, and it costs me about $7,000 a month probably, and that's with food costs.
My house cost me more than that.
Yeah, right. And I was looking at it and I was like, okay, I can stay in the States and I can afford a great life. I was living in Tampa before I left. I was fishing every weekend. It was great. But I wasn't living in a high rise. I wasn't living in a mansion. I wasn't driving a Ferrari or anything like that. Like, in my lifestyle was still $8,000, $10,000 a month. And inflation just continued to go crazy, right? Like, it's still interest rates. I wasn't happy with the presidential situation in there. So I thought it was just a great time I could travel and live really well and experience all these things for the same price that it was costing me to live a normal lifestyle in Tampa, Florida.
Dude, the amount of guts that it takes to actually pull the trigger and do it is impressive. More importantly, our kids are 21 and 20 respectively, right? We have two twins that are 21. We have a 20-year-old. Robin and I sacrificed quite a bit to make sure that they could go on trips and travel and see the world and who it's made them already. They're already smarter than us. Like, that we just have more experience. That's the only trump card we have on them anymore.
Yeah.
But you're setting these kids up to win because you've got, what, 10 months more in Colombia and then you're moving on somewhere else? Where are you going next?
Yeah, I'll at least be here till July.
Okay. 6 months.
The most of your countries, South America and west of the United States, out west, they speak Spanish. So my goal was to ingrain myself here in the country, become fluent in Spanish so that I could travel effectively around the country, right? Because whenever you go to another country, like say I go to Barcelona, the tourist areas are going to have people that speak English. But the stuff you really want to get out and see that no one goes and finds, you're going to need to be able to communicate Spanish because you're not going to have any service. And you're going to need to be able to navigate. So you're going to need to be able to speak the language. And you get more respect when you speak the language.
Makes sense.
Like here, like people will look at me funny. And then when I'm able to order food in Spanish or I'm able to have like a broken conversation, the respect is instantly there because they're like, oh, this guy's just not another American that come here. Because what a lot of people do when they come here to Colombia, they act like idiots. They come here, they want to flex and they want to have a party and they want to go hard and they want to do all these things because the dollar is 4 times as potent here. And they end up trashing stuff. They end up making a fool of themselves. They make us look like we're a very rude society and that we have no manners. So like our persona as we travel around the world as Americans, people's like, oh, they're very rude to Americans there. That's because the people come there that make us look bad.
So, like, tell me some of the things in the culture in Colombia that actually surprised you about how polite they are.
Oh, Spanish is a very polite and romantic language. So, like, where I'll say, hey, Chris, you want to get something to eat tonight? And you're like, yeah, sure. That's a rude response in Colombia. One word answers, very rude. Means you have a problem with someone.
Okay.
Say like someone's like, hey, can you pay for this or whatever, need cash? You can't like throw money down on the table. That's rude. Like you need to like hand it to them. They're very traditional here, huge family gatherings. Like I said, it's a very romantic language, very polite. Like if I'm getting in the elevator, everyone's going to say, you know, buenos dias or buenos noches or buenos tardes to you, even if they've never seen you. And then when they leave the elevator, they're going to say hasta luego. They've never seen you, but they've told you good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And then they've told you, see you later. And you've never seen them. You might never see them again, but everyone will greet you as you walk past them, as you walk into an elevator, as you walk into a restaurant. It doesn't matter. It's not like everyone will make eye contact and say something to you. It'll never be like they just look at the ground or they just don't look at you. So the culture is very, very respectful here. Like, and it took me some getting used to. Like, if my girlfriend asked me something and I'm like, oh, and I just say, see, she'd come over and like smack me upside the head and be like, why are you being so dry with me? Right. And they're like, oh, I'm working. Sorry, I forgot. But you got to say like, see amor gracias. Like, thank you, love. Yes. You know, like,
you know,
that's
some
it.
of the trouble that's the trouble that I get into with Robin. Even because she's like that. She's very traditional. Like there's a lot of in the way she talks to the kids and me, same thing. You know, she'll call my love. She'll say these kinds of things. And I'm a little bit more of like East Coast, get it done, like da 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 da, and one word answers. And I agree with you because what Robin says, and it made me think of this. When people are taking the time to slow down, they're saying, I see you. I see you.
Hmm.
And what I'm hearing from you is you're going, this is what life is really for me becoming all about. It's not about making the millions and millions. That'll come. I've already figured that part out. But how happy is that actually going to make me? I want to see this legacy built. I want to see real relationships. I want to be a part of a family. And dude, as your friend standing back and kind of watching it, knowing the kind of family that you had, some stuff happen when you were growing up, instead of you playing victim, you found a way to do something about it because it's going to end with you. And dude, that is one of the bravest things on earth to do, is to say, this will end with me, because I'm going to put an exclamation on the end of this sentence. Taking care of those kids, man, is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It's not been easy, but it's not impossible. And one of the things I'm moving towards into content and stuff that I have for next year is like, to the single parent, like, you're not stuck. You don't need a partner to be able to achieve great things for the kids. Is it easier? Absolutely. But the wrong partner makes it way worse. So sometimes, like, if you're not sure, like, I'll be honest, when I went through my divorce, it took me 2 years of working on myself before I was ready for anyone else.
Makes sense.
If I would have got with anyone else in those 2 years of learning to be a single parent and working on my business, it would have been a disaster on rails, waiting to crash and burn.
Yep.
I think a lot of people get out of a relationship and they're so codependent, they don't give themselves time to work on themselves so that they can be good for someone else, right? And a lot of that is like, society tells you need a 2-person household and this and that. It's like everyone wants to keep up with the Joneses instead of live the way that they want to live. I got friends that don't want to get married or have a girlfriend. I got friends who don't want to leave their house because they love spending so much time with their wife. It doesn't bother me anyway. I tell everyone all the time, like, hey man, like, you don't got to justify your decision to me. If that's how you want to live and that's what makes you happy, great. If you ever want advice, I'm here, but I'm not going to steer you from what makes you happy. But if you're not happy, stop faking it and reach out to someone in your brotherhood and get some advice. But other than that, I'm not here to steer you off of what you want to do.
Do you think that we're in a transition right now, especially, like, look, man, how old are you at the time of this call?
33 years old.
33 years old. Do you feel like your generation is going through a transition of adding wisdom to opportunity in a way that's never been done before?
I think there's so much information out there available to everyone. I think that my generation is the first generation that gets to capitalize on that. So yes, wisdom is available much earlier than it would have been for you or your parents, right? I think I read something the other day that it used to take 50 years to double our knowledge as a society. And by 2030, we're going to double our knowledge every 72 hours.
Yep.
Like, that's how fast the information of knowledge is changing. So that's why I believe that no one is stuck. 50 years ago, if you were in a bad situation, it's probably going to take you a couple years to work out of it. Now, you can launch a Facebook post with a great offer and make $25,000 in 24 hours.
Yep.
You just need the knowledge to know how to do it, or the confidence to teach people. Everyone has something to teach someone. Just charge
what to do or what not to do.
Yeah, like, I mean, when I was growing up, I still have this goal. This is going to be like my goal when I'm done with the internet.
Yep.
I'm going to teach people how to fish.
That's beautiful, man.
On fishing, man, like, because that's what I want to do. I want to get up, I want to drink my cup of coffee, I want to go out on my boat, and I want to fish.
I get it, man. Like, we have a remodeling company on the other side. So we have split. We have 5,000 square feet. 2,500 is Iconic. 2,500 is New England Custom Remodeling. But we also have a golf simulator in the back room. Because because I love golf, right?
Exactly.
And I'm going to bring people around me that also that love golf, that want to learn something. And by the way, they might be business owners that want to learn Iconic. They might need some remodeling done. So I've made my world my world. But the amount of force that I had to give that rocket to actually break the atmosphere and get into orbit, dude. I'm 50, and I started doing this at 45, not at 33. And the dream started at 20 for me. That was when I realized I could be whoever I wanted to be. But I found myself even in a remodeling company going, but this isn't all of me. How do I integrate it all? And you're in the process of going, no, I'm going to live my life the most beautiful way that I can. And what's awesome about that, and this is why I love you so much, your immediate thought was, well, it's not just about me, it's how I'm going to take care of the people around me. And that's not just your children, dude. You do this for your friends, for everybody that you care about. It's just kind of guy you are. But you're making a life that's worth living for you, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing, dude.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like, this is the first year I had a lot of punches in. Like, first of all, nothing is always great. I've been punched in the face more this year than I have the previous years, right? With just different stuff. So everyone always has struggles. But yeah, my thing is, like, 50 years old, and my time with the internet is over, and I want to relax away from it. I'm going to take my knowledge, record my content, put it on YouTube, and I'll develop a following of fishing, and people will come to fish with me, and maybe the companies will sponsor me with a free boat or a truck or something, you know. But that's it. Like, whether people watch me or not, I'm going to put my content on YouTube of fishing because that's what I want to do, and I don't care. If it makes me 10,000 a year or 10 million a year, I don't care.
Right.
Because that's what I want to do. Right? Like, that's and you know, one of the reasons I wanted to start so early, like, so many people wait till they're 60 to go travel. You can't climb the pyramid at 60. You can't go up the 8-hour hike to get to that beautiful waterfall place at 60 years old. Some 60-year-old people can, but not most.
Right.
You don't know. I might not make it to 60. I might die tomorrow. I don't know. So I can't be like, oh, when I'm 60 years old, I'm going to go to Japan and do the samurai sword. I might not make it to 60. That's 30 years from now.
It's one of the most refreshing things. I was listening to Joe Rogan, and like, they asked him, how did you become so successful? He's like, I never really thought too much about being successful. I've always been really competitive, but I always did what I wanted to do. And he went through that transitory period that we all go through of I don't know who the hell I am or what I want to do. He talked about it. Then, just like you, dude, he first became really, really good at something that he was passionate about, Taekwondo.
Yep.
Then, to double down, he decides to be a comedian. Quite honestly, probably the hardest profession on earth. Gotta be. But he did it for love of the game. He didn't do it because I'm going to be a gazillionaire. And even now, when you listen to him on podcasts, he's just being who he is. Then I read a book by Elon Musk. Guess what Elon Musk did? Whatever the hell he wanted to do to live his life. And it's like, man, the clues are everywhere. Instead of following someone else and following their dream, be forward thinking enough to start creating your own. Have enough courage and guts. And that's what this little flame inside of Iconic is all about. Like, you are something special. Nothing else has ever been made like that. We got to see that light shine. We've got to see this thing start to happen, because I don't think anything good comes until somebody does. And here's what I know. The moment you make that declaration is when the real shit is going to start hitting you in the face. I don't know why it works that way, but I almost think it's the litmus test to, do you mean what you're saying and what you're doing? Are you willing to put action to it? Are you willing to have faith in it? And that's what produces, to me, real wisdom, because you learn while you're in those trenches. And dude, you're an example of it. Tell me about your kids. What has their experience been the last few months?
Before I dive into that, I agree. I think that's whenever you become a man.
Yeah.
I think so. Whenever you stop worrying about everything else around you and focus on, like you, for instance, like, I'm going to go all in on Robin. I'm going to go all in on this house. I'm going to go all in on Iconic, right? Because you went through a really rough transition period. And I was there, right? I watched you go through it. And I'm not saying you wasn't a man before then, but you become a man that you are proud of when you stop giving a crap about everything else except the way that you want to live.
Yep.
Right. And it's very hard for a lot of people to do that because they're so worried about what their neighbor's going to think. You know, who cares? The neighbor's miserable. They're just not going to tell you because they don't want you to know. Right? So, they want it to look good on social media. They don't want you to know that they hate their life.
Right.
But no, the kids, I mean, I'll dive into it. We sold the house. We put everything into a storage unit. Amy was going into fifth grade, right? So most people would have been like, oh, I want my daughter to finish her fifth grade year at the school. But I decided not to do that. Sold the car. I don't have a house in the United States. I don't have a home anywhere. Um, we come to a country where they don't speak Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, and no one speaks English here, right? So really uncomfortable, but at the same time, like fun. Like it's
Every day is an adventure.
very different. We're in a rainforest. You know, the weather's 70 degrees, 365 days a year here. You can watch the faucet of rain come over the mountain. It won't even rain where you're at, but you can see the rain. The water and the fruits, the exotic fruits that are here, the food, the urbanization culture of all their graffiti and the way that people live. Just really cool to see. And you know, I've taken them all over to the malls, to the playgrounds, to this and that, and soccer. You know, they play different games of soccer here, and you know, we've just experienced that stuff, and they like it. Like, you know, it was a shock for them at first. They take an hour of Spanish class a day with their private teacher, so they're learning Spanish too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the hardest thing that's been, I would say, for them is the food. The food is very different. It's not processed here. So non-processed meat actually doesn't have much taste to it. So what you get here is a lot of really great salsas, but they don't actually season their food. But they have great salsa. So like the
Dipping.
food is very bland, but it's very healthy, right? Like you're not eating all that processed foods. Like that the number one reason I came here is to get my health back in order over the next 6 to 12 months.
Okay.
And it's been great because within a week of being here with the fruits and the food, and like my system cleans out and I start to feel great. Also, I hurt my knee playing football and my back, so the cold weather is not nice to me. So here it's a lot easier. I don't have the cold weather pains when I get up in the morning. So
And the kids, have they transitioned now? Do they enjoy this experience versus, you know, lamenting of I want my friends back and all that kind of stuff?
no, because if you think about it, most kids spend a lot of their time online anyway. That's like their social like level now. Like when I was growing up, you rode your bike around the neighborhood to see where all your friends were at. That
Yeah.
doesn't happen now. Like
Yeah.
everyone's on a game, right? So they still talk to their friends on their games at nighttime. And you know, every time we get to a new Airbnb or a new location, like they'll be on their laptop and they'll be showing their friends online where they're at, you know, in the world. So like they're enjoying it, you know. There's parts of it like this month I've been really homesick. It's the holidays,
Yeah.
you know. But I didn't go back home. I'm staying through the holidays. Christmas here is a big deal. They celebrate Christmas from December 1st to January 6th.
Wow.
Every night is fireworks. Every weekend is a holiday. Every Monday they're off work this whole month because it's holidays. Christmas is a huge deal here. Actually, how they celebrate Christmas is 72 hours long. It's family gatherings. They don't really give presents, but they drink and party without sleeping for 72 hours straight. And from what I hear, it's rough, like for people who are not from here. So interesting.
Well, you're gonna have to report back and let us know what that was like.
Yeah, you know, dancing is a language here. It's a love language. It's like a rite of passage. So if you want respect, you need to be able to do some dances, some salsa, some bachata, some reggaeton. So I took classes to learn how to do that when I got here to fit into the culture. And I was very shy. I do not like to dance, but I've broken that since I've been here the last 3-4 months.
Dude, that's awesome.
So it's a big. I actually enjoy the culture here more because it's very traditional.
What's some of the advice that you would give to people? I mean, based upon this conversation that we're having, man, like I know that there is a level of frustration that you personally felt. And that's why you made this move. And you also cleared some other mechanisms that were just lagging and hanging on to you, which I know all of us have.
Mm-hmm.
What advice would you give to people beyond just, hey, man, you need to really ask yourself what makes my life worth living? What else are you trying to say because of what you're experiencing?
We've had this conversation a lot, but I'll say it again for the podcast.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if you're blood with someone, if you've known them for 20 years, if you grew up with them, if you've been through a lot of crap together as a kid, doesn't mean that you didn't level up and they stayed the same and that rubber band is so far that you have to get away from them. That was probably the hardest thing that held me back for the longest is, my own mom, my ex-wife, a couple of my friends that I grew up with who we played football together. All were not people that I needed to be around. But I felt bad for leaving. And sometimes I still feel bad for leaving.
Sure.
But it was
You're
the right
human.
thing to do, There's so many things. You only have so much energy in your cup every day and every week. And like, I think when we were talking on the phone last week, Chris, you said it. You said, I only put my energy into people that I really can help. And other people that I can't really help because they're not ready, they don't get really much of my energy. Why? Because you only have so much. And that's how it works.
No. Keep going. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, and that's the truth. Like, how many of you have a mom that's overbearing that sucks your energy out of you? How many of you have a brother or someone who might be in addiction? I'm not telling you to get rid of that person out of your life, but you should probably distance yourself until they're ready to help themselves. Like, how much energy are they actually pulling from you? Because when your energy's gone, you can't put it on where you need to focus the most, which for some of us, that's business. For some of us, that's our spouse. For some of us, that's our kids. But you can't put your energy where you're supposed to focus on what's important to you because you're giving it to people that you shouldn't be.
One of the, this became maybe about 5 years ago. I really started getting more and more intentional about it. My litmus test for me is red light, green light, and to literally sit there and write a person's name down and go, green light means that the way that I feel even writing their name down, I lean in. Yellow light is 50-50. And red light means there's more negativity coming from that person than there is positivity. And so I'm leaning out. If my initial thought when I write something down is, ooh, or if it's kind of like, well, I can't, or is it that's how I know. But the next step of that is this. I hate having conversations where we're gossiping about some other person, especially when it's inside of a unit and they're not here. And it doesn't matter who they are. I immediately feel bad because they're not here. I immediately feel like I'm passing negativity along to someone else. And I keep asking myself, why am I spending so much time worrying about this person? Because on the other end, what my experience has often been is they've spent about no time worrying about me. And I've had over 300 employees, man. So it's like, okay, this goes everywhere about wasting time. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, who's a taker and who's a giver, right?
Sometimes the biggest takers are the ones that call themselves the givers, man. And I used to get messed up in my head about that a whole bunch.
Yeah, and man, it's so some of them are really good at disguising what they are. And it takes a little bit longer to figure it out. But the moment that you catch that drift, you should cut it. And I think it was Thomas that said this years ago when we were in the same group together. If I wake up and you're on my mind, you're gone.
Yeah.
So if I wake up in the morning and I'm stressed out because of you, you got to go. Whether I'm firing you or I'm going to cut you off or put you at distance or whatever it is, it's over. Like, I can't. Like, it's just, and it all goes back to, and this is something I'm working on. Self-awareness is so much of self-development, I think, as you learn who you are. But I was looking, and sometimes I speak too soon on a situation that I shouldn't because of emotions.
Yep.
Like I cost myself like 10 grand not too long ago because I had a client stiff me. And instead of getting the 10 instead of the full 20, I spoke on it out of emotion. I lost all of it because I felt like the guy screwed me over. And like a lot of times, which I've been really good about the last 2 months, but before that, before I became self-aware of what was happening, I would speak emotionally on a situation instead of just letting it play out over 5 or 7 days. And most of the time it would fix itself. I would never have to get in that conversation.
Yep.
And so now it's like, I got like a 3-day rule. Like if I'm mad about something, I don't say anything about it for 3 days.
That's brilliant.
Because
that takes a lot. That takes a lot of strength too.
Yes, it's very hard. But a lot of times what I've noticed happens now is like, for instance, me and Jose just recently went through our separation of business where I sold the business to him.
Yep.
We maintained our friendship and we're still really good friends, which a lot of people are not able to do. It was very important to me that that was the case. But there were times on both sides where we were mad at each other.
Sure.
Because of certain things, you know. But both of us, and I learned it from Jose, is like, you never speak out of emotion. And I was very bad about speaking out of emotion for a long time. And I never wanted to be the hot-headed guy, right? And that's like when I look at the best version of me and who I want to be and how I want to live, hot-headed is not in that conversation. It's not on that piece of paper, you know?
Yes.
So
Me
it's
either.
gotta go, you know? And I'm not hot-headed. I'm not scared of confrontation, which is a good thing in business most of the time, but it's also not a good thing. It can be very bad.
I agree. One of the things that we talk a whole bunch about is this idea of if something has emotionally charged you, it is never someone else's fault. Not because it isn't, but because when I do that, I'm giving you all of my power, every single bit of my power, and there's nothing I can do about it, which means it's going to throw me into victimhood, and that's a spiral that takes you back down to start. And it's like, why do it? So if I can hold the line long enough,
Yep.
like you said, 90% of the time it works itself out. I would go say like 95% of the time it works
I would
itself
say
out.
95% of the time it works itself without you ever having to get involved in the conversation.
It's just you holding the line.
Yeah, or you offending anyone else because it works itself off. A lot of times someone who gets mad at you, if you don't say anything back in 5 days, they'll reach out to you and apologize. You never have to have that conversation. And you said it earlier, I'm very analytical. I'm so analytical, sometimes to a fault. I studied Warren Buffett so heavy in history in college. And the great thing that Warren does is he always has a hedge.
Yeah.
Right? So when I look at a situation, I'm always like, okay, if this is the worst case scenario that's going to happen out of this situation, where's the hedge? Where do I protect my backside, right? And I've always done that. And when I'm looking at, whenever I'm stressed or I'm emotional about a situation, I forget the hedge. I don't care if there's a hedge there. And then normally what happens is I burn myself, right? So I try to just like, all right, let me just hold the line and I'll just wait until at the worst possible scenario is 5 days from now, I got to have this conversation.
Well, here's something like this. I know this might sound kooky or woo-woo to some people, but it's just been my true experience. Most of the time when an outside stimulus gets me into that spot that I want to react instead of respond, what it's also doing is my energetic field or my frequency is also diving. I'm in negative emotional stuff. And this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs and kind of like there are charts that show this, right?
Yeah.
So what I do in those 5 days, for me, it's not 5 days. For me, it's kind of until it's time to deal with it, right? Like I'm now in a corner and I can't.
Yeah.
But during that time, there is a grieving period that I must go through to get rid of that emotion for one thing, so my energetic level can get back up. And what always happens, Brandon, is I think about why I'm upset with that person. And usually it's because it's preventing me from accomplishing, because all of my stuff is through communication and people. Like I delegate to a whole bunch of people, multiple businesses, even in home and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can set a new goal with a higher energetic level, which is just I'm in the belief mode again instead of down in the dumps, what happens is that opportunity usually manifests very quickly, or at least the seed of it, I see it. And then I take that energy and just keep ramping up. And what happens is by the time it's normally like you must deal with this problem, I now can just hold a container for somebody else to dump all of their stuff into. And that usually is what they just go, I really appreciate you listening. And they're not saying this is all paraphrase. They're kind of going, and it sounds like we've made, we have understanding between one another. And I really would like to then lean in again and find a way that we can do this together again, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and it solves itself. And it's like, wow, I'm still just focused on me.
Mm-hmm. And what you've done is you've led the situation. People want to be led. Most people need to be led. So you've brought the confidence to the table to lead the situation. And other people not bow down to it, but they fold to it because they're like, wow, I'm not going to be able to compete with Chris at the level that he's currently at in this situation. I should probably follow his lead.
And the cool thing is everybody can do it. I've just told myself that my emotions aren't always real.
No. And it's so funny you say that, because if I look at a situation, I'm emotional about it, there's no good outcome. I can't make a decision. It's like I'm putting in a bag of marbles of 10, and all 10 of them are going to kill me. There's no chance for me to make a good decision out of that. So it's like, let me just sit on it for 5 days, 3 days, 5 days, whatever it can take.
And dude, I've had so many experiences in life because I chose to be an entrepreneur just like you, that it's kind of what the fuck moments show up that you never expected. And I've had a lot of like either circles coming right back to the same result over and over, no matter how I experimented, or just an emotional roller coaster through it. And I finally said, I want to stop off of this. I want to step off of this, and I want to do something at a different level to possibly get a different result, which is partly why when we were talking and we were just catching up, and you were telling me all that you've done with the kids and with you and the reasons that you're doing it, I was like, dude, I want to give another example of somebody who's actually taking action with what they believe instead of just talking about it. So many people talk about making a lot of money, talk about how cool they are when they have the car. Like nobody fucking cares that much, man. And the people that actually do care that much, they're not at your level yet. So there's nothing but for you to use them. So it's actually finding what's most important and taking the steps necessary to create the life that you want. And I'm proud of you for doing it, dude. Because it's one of the hardest things on earth to do.
Yeah, and I really appreciate it, man. Like, and I'm here to help teach other people that you can do whatever you want to do, right? And just be an example, for sure. But I want to give some examples on what you said, that no one really cares. What was it? 2 months ago, I think Alex Hormozy broke the internet with his webinar. I think so.
Yeah, something like that.
48 hours later, no one was talking about him.
I know.
Right?
And it was amazing.
Hormozy breaks the internet, and in 48 hours, no one's talking about him. Your problem is probably not lasting more than 5 minutes in someone else's head because they don't care.
Yep.
You might care about it, but they don't care. So you should not put as much energy into it. Like, it's hard. It's it's a very self-aware skill that you have to develop.
Well, for me, because there weren't a whole lot of, like, there was no Zooming people in other countries, much less Zooming people across the state, or in my same town. You'd have to drive and see them or send them mail. It was through a process of selection that I came to the same conclusions that you're coming to. The cool thing that I learned is that I'm really proud that I've never quit on me. And everything else that I've learned is that I do not know a whole bunch of stuff. That sounds like opportunity to me, not the other way around.
You're so right. And I wanted to end, well, not end, but I wanted to bring this up before we end it. But you said it. When you were growing up, and even when I was growing up, because at 15 is whenever I had the block cell phone. Like that was when cell phones were becoming a thing. When I was growing up, pagers were still there, right? So like even me, like the kids that are 20 right now have so much more advantage than what even I did and you did growing up with information, right? But it's not the information. And this is what I think I'm really big on this as I move into this next phase of my life and who I want to be. I think as a man, your brotherhood of people is the most important group of people in your life, even more important than your wife, because your wife is who you confine in and you have a relationship in, and there's things that you do that you can't do with your brotherhood. Your brotherhood keeps you competitive.
They hold you a standard.
Your brotherhood keeps you having an edge. Your brotherhood keeps you, in check a lot of times. Your brotherhood as a man is probably the most important group of people that you will ever have in your life. And I see so many people get in a relationship or get in a funk in life or a down spirit, and they shut themselves out from everyone. And they like domesticate themselves, and then they're miserable. They're miserable because they don't have any strong men in their life. Like no one rides a high at all points of time.
True.
But if you have a brotherhood, there's always going to be a couple guys in the brotherhood that are riding a high when you're on a low, and you balance yourself out. You have to have it. You're never going to be in good spirits all the time. You need guys that's like, hey, Chris, you're messing up. Like, bro, it's time to get back on the horse, or like, vice versa. Like you got to have that. And it's so easy. The reason I bring that up, you can talk to someone in Japan right now. Like you're in Maine, I'm in Columbia. I think you're in New England.
New Hampshire, close.
New Hampshire, I was close. I knew you was up north. But I'm talking to you, and we're 4,000 miles apart. You can have a strong brotherhood because of the technology today. There's no reason for anyone not to find their group of people. Doesn't matter if you're a lumberjack, if you're a fisherman, if you're an emo, or you got some weird beliefs that I don't want to talk about, the 140 genders that we have now. It doesn't matter. You can find your group of people, because the technology is there. There's thousands of forums on Reddit of people that have the same interest as you. It just takes some effort to put a post on there and start to connect with people. Find your brotherhood of people. And it doesn't matter. You don't have to have the Andrew Tate level brotherhood. Right. You don't need that. You don't need those rich people. Maybe you got a brotherhood of people who all fish the same lake together, and you guys all know the greatest fishing spots because that's your hood, right? That's your brotherhood. That's fine if that's what makes you happy, right? Like that's it. Like that's it. Like I think that's the key to life is find your people and live the way that you want to live.
Man, it's a bold statement, especially to a lot of men, especially today, because men have been hammered on now for about a good 30, 40 years.
Oh, yes.
And in a lot of ways, they've been neutered. And I don't mind going on record for saying this, but in my family, my job is to provide and protect. My job is not to be the best friend to my children, and sometimes it's not to be the best friend to my wife. It is to understand what goals my wife wants to accomplish, what goals my children want to accomplish, and to create an arena by which that it can happen. Now, in the process of creating that arena, they might not understand what has to be done, and they might get down in the mouth about it. So then my job is to find the courage to not condemn them and make fun of them and hate on them and become a victim and say, why doesn't anybody love me? But to continue to build them up and encourage them so that they can do that. And the only way that I have personally found is with the brotherhood. Some form of people that are at my level or above that hold the same standards that I do, that can hold me accountable to them, not even always by using their mouth to judge me, but just because they show up. And when they do, they're elevating their game, and they're not afraid to tell you the crap that they went through to elevate that game. And I come away motivated and saying, well, if Brandon can do it, Chris can do it. And that's exactly how I have used my brotherhood to hold a standard that I can bring back to my home. So I agree with your statement, man. It's just I hope somebody really gets some benefit from what you said, because I want you to say it one more time. What you're really saying are two things. What are they?
brotherhood is important, and your lifestyle, the way that you want it to live, is also important. But I'll prove out what you just said. Out of all the branches in the military, when you read it in the newspaper, the only word that gets capitalized is Marine. Soldier don't get capitalized, seamen don't get capitalized, airmen don't get capitalized, Marine gets capitalized. Do you know the number one core value in the Marines?
Is it the brotherhood?
It's brotherhood.
Yep.
You ever been? It doesn't matter where you are in the world. If another Marine meets another Marine in a bar, in a club, in another country, if they've never seen anyone, it is an automatic respect of brotherhood on an equal level. And the Marines have been around hundreds of years. And and what is the core principle? It is brotherhood, right? That's it. It's brotherhood. And I want to touch on something else you said before we end here. You said that it's not your job to always be your wife's or your kid's favorite person. I agree with that, because I think men have been hammered so long that so many men are now in feminine energy and not masculine energy. It is not, and that's why all the divorces, the relationship issues that men's have, the hey, mean words hurt me. I think that's why it all has started to happen, because we've been beat on for so long that men have forgotten that their job is one thing: to lead and to protect.
I do not disagree, and I'm telling you, it was a really, really tough thing for me personally to come into awareness that I was a victim of that. At first, I felt emasculated, I felt scared, I felt angry, but like with what we said earlier, I just went through a grieving process with it. And then I started to look at men that I respect. You're one of them. And then I started to say, how do they respond to life? Dude, you're not making excuses for yourself. You're picking yourself up and moving on. Therefore, I must do the same thing because it's a good example. And I appreciate you showing that example. I appreciate you taking time to get on here. We didn't talk anything about business, man.
No,
and I appreciate you about that. I really do.
and I think you said it. As a man, you have to grieve to grow. You have to be vulnerable to grow. I have been demasculated for years in my relationship with my ex-wife. I was a victim of what I just told you. I did not always carry my masculine energy to lead. And it hurt my relationship over it. You know, I'm not saying it's all my fault, but it's my fault that my marriage failed. And when you look back, I was not always a leader and protector that I needed to be. Sometimes I was too beat up, as you want to call it. But as men, we're not actually made to be the hammer. We're made to be the nail. And a lot of people don't understand that.
Explain it.
We get beat on. No one cares about our feelings. When you can have all these women who are, great leaders and alpha women, and they're great, and they're motivator speakers and everything. But let a bomb go off in the building next door. What's the first thing that they're going to do? They're going to find a strong man to follow. We are the nail. We are not the hammer. We are made to get beat on. And because what creates the strongest weapons in the world? It's an anvil, right? What's an anvil do? It gets beat on.
Yep.
We're an anvil. We're the nail. Like, we get beat on. So when the time comes, we're hardened to face whatever situation that it is. Everyone else is the hammer. We think we're the hammer. Most men think we're the hammer. We're not the hammer. We're made, and so many people have lost that. They forget that we're supposed to be the ones that take all of that pain and be able to turn it into a great weapon.
Dude, the whole mission statement of Iconic is we make leaders, not followers. And the idea behind it is we are the anvil, not the weapon. And yeah, bro, it's what our world needs. You're a living example of it. And I appreciate you taking the time to come on this show. And it's so fun, man. The conversations you and I are having now are actually the same conversations we had a few years ago, but your perspective on it is not way different. It's clearer and tighter, and you're putting feet to the action. You're putting feet to the message. So now it has like this weight to it. And I think this podcast is undeniable proof that if you're willing to hold a dream and you're willing to change who you are through that process and be responsible and actually elevate to the best version of who you are, that it doesn't mean that it's all going to be sunshines and roses, but it means it's going to be your authentic life and you're going to be proud of who you are through that process.
Yeah, and you're going to have a lot of ups and downs finding your people. I mean, look where we met. There was a lot of good that came out of that. There's
Absolutely.
a lot of bad that came out of it.
Yep.
Right? I got lifelong friends that I met there.
Me
people
too.
That have leveled me up, such as yourself. Like, I look at yours and Robin's relationship. I actually don't look at yours and Robin's relationship as an example. I look at where I met you with your relationship from Robin to where you are now and what you did in between to get there.
Thank you.
Because when I met you, your relationship with Robin was way different than where it is now.
Yes.
Way different. It's night and day.
Yeah.
So now I see what a lot of people will see when they follow Chris Whitehead is this great relationship with Robin. What they don't see is the journey that it took to get there, which I watched. And I think for you as a person and what you're trying to accomplish with Iconic, I think you should talk about that.
Well, it's funny that you say that because as soon as Robin got a hint that this room was being built, she's like, Chris, I've talked to 3,422 of my friends and they all say we need to do a podcast together. I said, hold on. We will. Let's just get this thing going. But I appreciate you saying that, man, because it's really funny, man. I believe that there is no one person for anybody. There are 8 billion people on Earth. I can get along with probably hundreds of women.
Yep.
But I was fortunate enough to find someone that meets all of my core values and holds a standard that is sometimes higher than mine, and sometimes mine is higher than hers. But long and short, like, I don't want another woman. I like, in our relationship, there were a few times where we broke up, and I had the opportunity to, meet other women, and I just realized, like, it isn't the same. So when that becomes a thing, which is, by the way, was on my heart that I wanted my whole life anyway, is somebody that not they would ever, like, most people are afraid that somebody's going to break up with them.
Yeah.
I was never afraid of that. I was afraid that I would not like someone long enough to stay in a long-term relationship.
Yes.
And so I found it.
Man.
And now what I've done is I've spent the rest of my life learning who I have to become to keep it. It's such a different perspective, dude. And it's the same way I feel about my business. The same way I feel about my friends. It's the same way I feel about my kids. And all I find is there is a lot more work to do, not the other way around.
And you said it. And that's one thing I think that I learned from you too. And I watch, and I've had this is a problem I struggle with too, being vulnerable. I've always never fully committed to a relationship because, and sometimes I catch myself doing it in business. Like, I'll get 2 big clients and this client will be bigger than this client. And then I'll focus on this client and then I'll get a bigger client. It's like, I'm always going like 2 ways. Right.
Yeah.
And, a man that chases 2 rabbits catches none. And all the wisdom is there from our ancestors and we tend to forget it. Like, the grass isn't greener on the other side. Like, really think about that. You said it. There's 8 billion people on Earth. You can find another woman that you would enjoy spending time with.
Yeah. But
you have decided without a reasonable doubt in your mind that the 7.99999 other billion people on this planet is not for Chris. Chris is for Robin.
Bro, when I first met her, her looks attracted me for sure. For sure. But then I took the chance to get to know her as a person and what drove her and what her singularities were and what her core values are and also what her struggles were. And this person became somebody that I see and I can't unsee them.
Yeah.
So I think about what a best friend truly is. And then I think about this person is actually walking beside me, even when they're not here. Everything I'm doing, I'm bringing that energy back. She's already attached to me because of a lot of different reasons anyway. So we are one now. And if we're truly one, when I start to chase two rabbits, what's going to happen to me? I'm going to be split down the middle. And so we don't deserve to have things until we make a commitment to them, is my point.
And you're right, because like, let's think about it. When you start to become successful and well-connected, you get opportunities every week.
Yep.
When you don't know truly what you want, you will continue to jump opportunities for the best one that comes along at that moment. But the realistic truth is, if you just focus on the one thing that you want all in and you build that, it's going to be better than everything else that comes along.
Yep.
And that is where I have struggled as a young entrepreneur over the past 5 years, is all the opportunities that came. Instead of just focusing on what Brandon actually wants to build, even though it might not be as far as this opportunity that I have in front of me, it doesn't matter, because this will be better because it's what I want to build. Right. And it's the same thing with women. Yeah, there's millions of beautiful women out there that have great personalities. Mm-hmm. But this is the one that I want. This is the one that I want to build. Mm-hmm. And once you make that decision, life becomes a lot easier.
Bro, it's like the entrepreneurial journey. I've been in business 25 years. Most of it has not been like glorious. Most of it has been what? But I made a commitment to a lifestyle. And once I made that commitment, what I realized is my whole dream for creating a business was truly so I could have time freedom, so that I could actually bring my family back together, because my family's all split into a million pieces, right?
Yeah.
Bro, my mom works with me. My sister works with me. My son works with me. Robin works with me. I'm looking back and I'm like, my family's coming along. Jonathan's in the business.
Yeah.
Like, my family is coming along, the ones that want to. So I'm actually proud that I never quit, because I'm going to be able to realize my biggest dream. And here's what's cool about that. My biggest dream now no longer means origin. It also means choice. So I have families in both departments, and I'm watching my family grow, so that what? So that I can have experiences in this lifetime that I was supposed to have that were robbed from me. And instead of me being a victim and waiting on somebody to just hand it to me, which, by the way, never fucking happens.
It never happens.
I decided to put feet to it. Well, guess what? I had no experience of really how to do it well long term. So I've screwed up a lot. And instead of lying about it or blaming, I actually want to learn, because I actually want what I said I wanted. Yeah. And that's all you've been talking about the whole time. And so if people will make a choice and just never quit on what they said they wanted, you will get it. You will get it. So it better be what you want.
Yeah, you don't waver. And I'm going to tie this all back in, because I think this is one of the things that you do very well. And I'm pretty sure it's still part of your program. I'm not sure. Everything starts with what you really want. Because for me, nothing, if I'm making a choice to do something, does it tie into the lifestyle and the person that I want to be? If the answer is no, it doesn't happen, because I know what I want. And until you figure out exactly what you want, maybe you want to raise 10,000 bees and sell honey.
Right.
That's fine. But you have to commit to that and never waver off of it. And once you do that, everything else, you become so much happier as a person.
Like, it makes life simpler. It doesn't make it easier, but it does make it a lot simpler.
No, it's never easy. Nothing worth having is easy. Actually, I'll be 100% honest. If you try to go start a honey selling business, everyone's going to tell you that you're crazy.
Yes.
Whenever I decided I was taking my kids to Colombia, because of the way that the media portrays Colombia because of the 80s, you're so crazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know, I'm talking some of the closest people that I've had in my life, like, telling me that I'm nuts. Right. But let me tell you a secret. I get down here. You know what the perception of Americans are in Colombia?
What?
That we produce mass shootings and serial killers. That's all they think about us.
Wow.
Do you know what we think about Colombians from American standpoint?
Same thing.
That they're drug dealers with mass cartels and mass murders.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the media. Not because someone went and experienced it. And it's the same thing with what we do. Think about that. The media is so powerful that it's got two countries believing the worst thing possible about the other one. When it's the 0.00001% of people that is that. Right? So think about what social media does to us about chasing someone else's happiness of, oh man, I wish that I had their lifestyle.
You sure?
It's fake.
Dude, here's what's even cooler. Because of things like this podcast and millions of other people doing it, we're starting as a world to take back from that propaganda machine so that people can hear people's real experiences. Look, dude, you're actually in Colombia. Your children are actually there. We're actually having a real conversation. So anybody that happens to trip across this might hear some other thing than what's been told. And dude, that is the beginning of wisdom, I believe, is tripping into truth. What you do with it is whether it's wise or not.
You know, some people don't like the justice system here. I like the justice system. You know what happens if you mess with a child or you kidnap a child?
What?
It's the worst possible thing. They will put a tire around you, fill it with gasoline, and catch you on fire.
Really?
You know how many people, you know how many kids get kidnapped here or childs get touched?
None.
None.
Yeah.
Because it is black and white. There is no tried by 12. The judge is in a good mood today, so I'm going to get 5 years instead of 25. It is black and white. X equals Y, right? I like that. You know, some people are scared of it. I'm not a bad human being. It doesn't bother me.
Right.
My children are safe. This country protects children like I've never seen before in my life.
It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to hear, man.
On the news, you would think totally opposite. You would think your child is in danger of being kidnapped.
Dude, it's how our whole conversation started on the phone. I was like, all right, give me the real lowdown because this is what I thought this was. And you were like, and I was like, yeah, we need to have a conversation about this.
Every person I meet, oh, I want you to meet my grandma and my mother. They love children. They would love to have your kids over so that our kids can experience American culture. Now, are there areas in Colombia that you probably wouldn't want to be? Absolutely. Just like the United States. I don't want to be downtown Chicago.
Yeah.
I don't want to be downtown Fort Lauderdale in the middle of the night. It's common sense.
Now
right?
San Francisco and
it's the same thing. It works the exact same way here. Like, don't go to an area that you probably are not the safest in.
Makes sense.
You know, then that's it.
Well, brother, I appreciate you taking the time. Would you be willing to come back on and update us maybe in a few months or something?
Yeah, probably. Let me get my 2-year visa, and I don't know if I'll stay here longer than 6 more months till July, but I will be going to Barcelona and Rome and Italy. So definitely will update you when we take that trip.
Dude, I think people would be interested in hearing about it.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is around July, we'll go to Barcelona, and around September, I'll come back to Colombia, and that's probably where I'll stay for another period of time.
Okay. That's awesome, man. By the way, everybody, since you've listened this long, this guy does advertising. Like, we've hired him, we've used him. He's one of the real ones. Like, he doesn't take your money and run with it. He's run very, very successful companies, 7-figure companies, worked with people doing 8 and 9 figures, heavy stuff. If you are looking for somebody to help you grow your business, Brandon is an amazing person to talk to. We'll make sure that those links go below or above or wherever my team puts it. More importantly, find Brandon on social media. How can they find you on social media?
Yeah, all my handles are the same. It's official Brandon Spears, no matter where you're at: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm most active on Facebook, and That's where you can find my newsletter. I don't got anything to sell you. It's just information that we give out. So if you want to opt into that for it.
And that's why I recommend people actually checking you out on social media, because there are two things that I notice you do. Number one, you do give out quality information and you distill it. So it's easy to understand for people that don't do what you do. And it's in fact targeted towards people that do what I do, which is own businesses. Number two, the other thing that you do is you're just vulnerable and real and ask people questions or pose certain things that you're going through that are thought provoking. And in a world of bullshit that you can just flip through all the time, it's always fun to read your posts when you're having those Jack Handy thoughts of like, I got to question everybody, and just watching people respond to it, because it's always on time and on point.
Yeah, thanks, man. And I've enjoyed being on the show. I think it was a cool conversation. I'm glad we didn't get on business. I talk so much business every week. I like just talking stuff that's not business. So, and I hope it helps people who are stuck in a fake world of misery, because there's so many people out there.
I think that it definitely will, man. And you know, you and I'll keep talking, and when the next moment comes and you're doing it, you're welcome to come back, because this was an amazing. I tell you, it's so amazing. We don't go an hour and 16 minutes usually, because we're not trying to wear people out. But I didn't want to stop talking. Like, this is what makes life worth living, and it would be so amazing to learn that while you're younger, instead of waiting until you're 50 or 60 years old, because you're absolutely right. There might be 5 or 10% of the 60-year-olds that can climb up 8 hours a mountain to go see the waterfall, but the majority can't. So get your ass busy, no matter who you are, where you are. Get there now, because what's going to be left is definitely going to be a better life, and you've proven it, bro. So thanks for being here, and everybody, we'll see you in the trenches. Take care.
I came from the mud. There's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree. There's roots where I stand.
Hey friend, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to catch future casts. If you really enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it so others can benefit from it as well. I'll see you in the trenches.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.